The excitement continues at Roland Garros as the French Open tumbles forth to its dramatic conclusion. And we have two quarterfinals to talk about. The first between Rafael Nadal and Diego Schwartzman, and the second between Cilic and Del Potro. Well, let me say that Nadal versus Schwartzman was a sight to behold, at least for the first set. Diego Schwartzman shocked the viewing audience by essentially wiping the great Rafael Nadal off the red dirt at Roland Garros and breaking him 4 times in a single set. Rafa did not have answers for Schwartzman. Schwartzman was unstoppable. He was a wall. Everything was coming back. He was soliciting very short balls from Nadal with these very intense ground strokes that were kissing the lines. Schwartzman hit these incredible, accelerating forehands and backhands, eliciting gasps from the audience in the manner of those gasps that we heard when Roger Federer was hitting those neo backhands at the 2017 Australian Open. Well, Nadal ended up edging Schwartzman in the end. Edging is not quite the right term, but I want to talk about what happened. The final score was 4-6, 6-3, 6-2, 6-2. Schwartzman does not have much of a service game. He has a devastating return game, but not much of a service game. So Rafa knows that and was attacking Schwartzman's serve, but was unable to break him enough to save the first set. The same pattern started to appear in the second set. Rafa broke Schwartzman, and then Schwartzman came roaring back and broke Rafa. And it looked like the same thing was going to happen. It looked like it was over for Rafael Nadal at the 2018 French Open. But alas, the rain comes. There's one suspension for, say, an hour. The players come back and try it again, but then there's more rain and they have to suspend it overnight. When Rafa came back this morning, he was a different player. When Diego Schwartzman came back this morning, he was a different player. And it was basically what we've come to expect from Nadal in those final 3 sets. He just rolled all over Schwartzman. Schwartzman was not able to find the lines anymore and was struggling with the higher bounces in the drier conditions. It was a drier day. The ball was moving faster and bouncing higher. I think Diego was having some issues with that. There's no question that the rain did help Nadal regroup, but Nadal deserves a lot of credit for coming back and taking care of Diego, who presented a real threat. It's the stuff of champions that Nadal put on display. There's no question about that. So Nadal is going to go on and face Juan Del Potro. Let's talk a little bit about the Cilic versus Del Potro match. This was a pretty close matchup. They're both similar players. Big serves, big tall guys with big serves and big forehands, basically. And there was a lot of that. I thought it was going to go on 5 sets easily. But Del Potro did manage to squeeze a few breaks, basically, and to win the match. So congratulations to Juan Martin. Rafa would appear to have a very substantial advantage over Del Potro coming into this match. He holds a 9-5 record against Del Potro in the head-to-head. He did drop a set as recently as the U.S. Open to Del Potro, but in the very next set came back and actually bageled Juan Martin and went on to win that match at the U.S. Open and take that title. Anything is possible in tennis. I think Juan Martin is playing quite well. I think he will have to improve a lot over the level he was playing at against Cilic in order to give Rafa trouble. He might be able to take a set off of Rafa, but it's not likely. But here's the caveat. Rafa appears to be having some troubles in the heat of matches when he drops a set and when he's confronted by pressure that he can't deal with. Now, traditionally, historically, Rafa has been able to come back from those kind of situations, but over the course of 2017 and into 2018, there's been some signs that when he's facing a lot of pressure, he gets flustered. He can't figure it out in the heat of the match, in the thickness of the match. And he needs a break, essentially. And in the context of Rome against Zverev, and then again against Schwartzman, the rain came, which allowed Nadal time to think and figure out what was happening. He couldn't figure it out on the court in terms of what exactly Schwartzman was doing to him. He couldn't quite figure out how to articulate a response to that. He needed time to think through the options and to basically re-strategize in light of what had happened. So the rain definitely helped Nadal. There's no question about it. On the other hand, I do believe that Nadal deserves a lot of credit for coming back and turning this around. But the point is that Nadal is having an issue. In the heat of matches, he's having an issue that he didn't necessarily have before. Traditionally, he's been very good in these contexts. But over the course of the last year and a half, he's been having some issues in that context when he's confronted with pressure that he doesn't quite understand and he gets flustered. I believe Diego Schwartzman, folks, would have won the match were it not for the rain, just like I believe Zverev would have won the match in Rome and the title were it not for the rain. I do believe Rafa deserves a lot of credit for this. Don't get me wrong. I just believe that the rain helped him. He didn't do it. I'm not upset about the rain at all. It's the rain gods, if we want to call them that, that are producing that result. But he was helped. Schwartzman's blitzkrieg was interrupted, and Nadal had the opportunity to regroup, rethink, and re-articulate in his mind a strategy and a response for the Argentine. So those are my 2 cents. Drop a comment. I'm especially interested in your response in real time, if you were watching the match, to that first set between Nadal and Schwartzman. So I'm really looking forward to this semifinal. It should be interesting. I think Del Potro stands a chance. I think it could be a pretty competitive match. The other semifinal is, of course, Thiem versus Cecchinato. I already talked about that last episode. I did want to mention that Ben Rothenberg on Twitter was talking about Cecchinato's checkered past. He had some match-fixing allegations leveled against him in 2015, and according to Rothenberg's research, those allegations were substantiated and proven, and the only reason that the case was let go is because the gambling commission in Italy missed a deadline on the appeal and therefore lost the appeal by default. I asked Rothenberg in response whether there was some evidence, some court papers that he had which substantiated the assertion that it was a mistake by the gambling commission to miss that deadline, or whether they just let it go. I think there was some issue as to whether money was actually transacted. I think the match was fixed, and Cecchinato lost the match, but whether he actually received the money, I think there was some problem proving that. That could have been why the gambling commission let the deadline go. But Rothenberg didn't respond to me. But in any case, we shouldn't be lording this guy's past over him from 3 years ago. Clearly, he's not match fixing here at the French Open. And clearly, as he climbs the rankings, he's not going to need to match fix anymore. And in fact, after the French Open, I think he's going to be a relatively rich man. Well, more to come on all these matches. This is so exciting. I'm so happy. I was out on the courts with my son the other day who's learning to hit a tennis ball, and he's doing quite well. I'll post some pictures of that at some point, or maybe some video. That would be fun. Would love to hear your comments on any and all of the matches that are occurring at the French Open. So let's start a discussion. Look forward to hearing from you. Signing off from Boston.